Hi guys, and welcome to Total Technic. Today we're looking at parking brake shoes. We're going to show you how to do a complete replacement of the shoes, removal of all the components, and the car we're working on today just happens to be an Audi Q7. However, this same assembly can be found on various vehicles across the whole of the VAG range. So let's crack on. Okay, so before we look at dismantling any of this, we are going to a quick overview of how the basics work. So you have two brake shoes, obviously a top one and a bottom one, so it's kind of in two semicircular sections. There's one just there and a repeating one in the bottom. On the one side we have this adjusting screw, which has got a little almost like a little cog, and this is what you adjust through the brake disc, and you basically flick away at this in either direction to loosen or slacken it off. And next to that you have a retaining spring, so that's keeping constant tension closed there. So that's how you adjust. And if we go to the opposite side, this is actually where the handbrake comes through. So you've got a handbrake cable just here that passes in through the back of the hub here. The cable, as you'll see when we start to dismantle all this, actually comes into this unit. This unit clamps over, and this unit sits between the ends of the handbrake shoes here. So when you actually press the parking brake pedal, what will happen is it actually force this to open up slightly, only a little bit, and that makes this whole circle get that little bit bigger, just a tiny bit bigger, and then obviously that presses onto the inside of your discs, and that will lock the wheel. Now the thing that actually holds them in place, so you've got a kind of adjustment on either side. You've got your handbrake one, which is going to expand and contract as you press and release the handbrake. On the opposite side you've got your adjustment screw just in there, and that is just for making manual adjustments. That doesn't do anything normally. There's no kind of active mechanism in there. What actually holds them is actually missing. I popped it out here. There's a little screw on a spring just here that passes through, and actually passes through the dust shield on the back just here. And that's kind of your leverage point, if that makes any sense, because you need something pinned in the middle of that circle so that it can, as this side expands and contracts, you've got something to pivot around, and that's the pivot point right there. So you have one of those in the middle as well. So that's the basics. Oh, the other thing is on this side is you've got quite a meaty spring down in there, right next to the handbrake adjuster, and again, exactly the same as the other side. That keeps it keeps the tension away from the discs until you expand it using the handbrake cable. So we're going to attack this spring that's in next to your handbrake clip. So you need to get quite a meaty screwdriver, force that in behind there, and then we're going to lift it up and away from the shoe. So as you can see, that one unclips, and they're not normally quite that easy. What you normally do is you force the screwdriver in behind it. Careful not to force it through too much, because then you can actually catch the handbrake frame. You put it in like that, and then you start to lift it by levering on this end, and you lift it obviously just enough to pop it out. And another little tip for you on that is when you're lifting that out, because this is at an angle, it will want to slip off the end of the end of your screwdriver. So what you might have to do is grab a second screwdriver and keep a little bit of force in this direction, and then lift. So you can see it stretching there, and then you lift and then move the whole thing out. Or if you're lucky, you get like I did, and just hammering it through will just be enough just to pop it out. So now just unhook the bottom, put that safely to one side. So next we're looking at these little screws. These are kind of the pivot point that sit in the middle. They actually pass through the dust shield, and the way that these work is you have to press them in, twist 90 degrees, and then release it and give it a bit of a wiggle, like so. So they're kind of barbed on one side, so it actually passes through the dust shield, and you twist it 90 degrees and it will lock back in place. It's like a special groove built into the dust shield. So you want to remove that top and bottom. So we still have this spring on this side, but we shouldn't need to worry too much about that. We can disconnect this on this side and just move the whole assembly away. And obviously that's going to make it a lot easier to get this spring removed, getting it away from the hub. So we have this little adjustment screw in the center here. Just open it up a little bit just so you can pop that out. That comes in 2 sections. Yeah, that's grease, that's okay. I thought that was broken for a minute. No, that's absolutely fine. And then we can just unhook this second spring really easily. And also this part needs to come off. And that's the mechanism for the adjustment. And this is a threaded bolt. As you'll see when we move on, this moves in and out to expand the circle to get the handbrake to the correct adjustment. Quick tip for you, looking at the reassembly of your brake shoes, these little pins that fit through these holes, you want to make sure these are nice and healthy, especially if you struggle to get your disc off, as we did on this particular car. We had to manhandle it more than we would like because it was very, very stubborn. Now this is quite a healthy one, so the way that fits is it slides in, twist it through 90 degrees, and then it sits in like that. That's quite healthy, but if you compare the bottom one to this, we'll have to see what the problem is. So here's the bottom one. You can see that the hole's just opened up a little bit. So it's okay, it's just holding. But what we're going to do to make sure that that's a little bit better, is just going to try and reform that metal a little bit, push that back down, make it a little bit flatter, just to try and make sure that that's definitely not going to slip. So you're just feeling for the high points. I can see it's deformed slightly in that direction and slightly outwards. So this time I'll come this side of it and try and take it back in that opposite direction. So let's just give that a quick test. Yeah, that's much better. Close that gap up. I'm happy with that now. Now if yours are corroded out, which does happen, these dust shields, sometimes you can get a bit of corrosion in there and it's all rusted up, you will have to buy yourself a new one of these. It's very, very important that you get a good strong lock in there, because your whole parking brake system is reliant on these little holes in your dust shields. So if they are corroded, unfortunately you are going to have to buy another pair, but if you do kind of deform them a little bit, as you can see, you can reshape them as long as the metal's still good. And then next we're also going to get rid of this frame on the handbrake cable. Just kind of pull it forward. This is how it works. It hooks on like that. It hooks on and then you close the whole assembly around it. So the whole thing will close around it like that. And again, depending on what side of the car you're working on the right hand side, so this slot is at the top. What you'll find is when you're on the other side of the car, this will be over there if memory serves, and it's actually up the other way. So before we consider installing any of our new brake shoe components, we want to give this a good clean up. So I'm going to get the wire brush on this, tidy it all up a little bit, and then also a little bit of brake cleaner and wipe that over as well. So we're going to be reusing these components. As you can see, they're a little bit worse for wear. We do have some minor surface corrosion and dirt and stuff on there. So we're going to give these a bit of a clean up. So now's a good time to lubricate some of these components as well. So I'm just going to do this with our standard brake grease that we're going to be using throughout this project. So making sure you don't have any grease on your hands, let's take a quick look at the new shoes. These are from a brand called Performance Plus. Really familiar with this brand. Okay, so there's a nice new pair of shoes. That's as thick as they are when they're brand new. So if you're wondering which side is which, as you can see they are both completely identical. The way that it works is you'll see on one end it has quite a wide cutout slot, and on the other end it's just got a little slit. The wide slot is for the adjusting pin to sit into, and the little narrow slit on the other side is where the handbrake fits into. And so when you've got a pair like this, when you turn it over like that, you'll have two wide ones for your for the adjustment pin, and the two narrow ones for the handbrake. And just a quick point of reference, again, this is you're looking at it how it's going to be fitted onto the car. This little assembly here, it normally goes with the cog at the top, regardless of what side of the vehicle that you're working on. The reason being is this section here is the outer sleeve, this lower section, and the top section slides inside that. So if you put it in upside down, if something went wrong with the assembly, in theory this could fall out, whereas this is obviously helping to prevent that, if that makes any sense. So double check it when you remove yours, but you should find that the cog is towards the top. And just with our brake grease again, just going to seal these up, top and bottom. And also, whilst I'm here for good measure, these are two little kind of bolt heads here, where the that little handbrake frame, they push against that to generate the inward or outward force, and the brake shoes kind of fit on the top kind of edge just there as well. So anywhere where it touches, just a tiny bit of brake grease, certainly not going to do any harm. So next what we need to do is manipulate the top one of these to fit the little pin through the hole that's in there, and also feeding through the hole on your dust shield. Once you've located the hole, push, twist 90 degrees and release whilst giving a bit of a wobble. That should lock in. So next, put this little handbrake frame back on, the same way it was removed. Hook that on, close it up, and you need to hook the little hook on the bottom there. Needs to hook into the brake shoe like that, and likewise I'm just going to push down now, and I can put this into that little slot there. There. Make sure that feels like it's seated correctly. It does. Next we're going to do the other of these little spring clips on the bottom one. So now we've got the hard job of putting the main spring back in the kind of the beefier of the two springs right next to this little handbrake assembly here, brake cable assembly. So before we do that, we just want to double check that everything is definitely as it should be. So we know that we've got these pins in, they're feeling nice and solid. We come round and we can see that the top is fitted correctly in the slot, the bottom's fitted correctly in the slot on the shoes. Our spring next to it there is hooked in nice, so all the other components as they should be. So now once we're happy, the other thing to double check as well is that where the shoes come down, they actually sit on this plate and obviously top and bottom, so it should be sat on this kind of big plate in the middle as well. So that's the kind of correct alignment there. So once you're happy with all of that, we're going to battle on with the mainspring. Let's make life a little bit easier. Just going to put a little bit of my brake grease just around the holes. Okay, so some quick notes on fitting this spring. You normally hook it in kind of similar to what you did before, and then you can get a screwdriver, hook it under the end here. You might need a second screwdriver, again as before, to stop it slipping off the end, and then use leverage against the hub there to pull it in and just pop it in. And it can be quite tricky. It might, you know, if you're lucky, you might get it first time. It might take you 20 minutes just to get this spring back in. The other thing you can do is you can use one of these spring tools. You can get these from Amazon, places like that. We'll have a couple of links for the cheapest ones we can find for you in the descriptive text below. So if you want to get one of these in advance, they're quite handy. And there's various different ways that these can work. One is you can hook it like so, if you imagine that's in there, and use a clamp. However, this doesn't have an angleable head on this particular one, so what tends to happen is when you pinch, it tends to turn, and this tends to spin down. But what is quite handy on the other end is they have this this little round section, has a little cutout, and that can be quite handy for getting in there and using some leverage as well. When you kind of get it into the right place, you can almost kind of turn to kind of flick it in as well using this. So that they can be quite handy, and they're not actually very expensive. So if you're watching this video in advance of doing the job, you might want to consider getting a pair of these. Otherwise, good old screwdriver, it can be done. And then once it's in place, you want to get it roughly centered. You can see there's quite a small gap here, quite a big gap there. It kind of, the whole assembly has a little bit of movement in it. So I just want to get it roughly centered, ready to accept the disc. So there we go, guys. So that is your rear parking brake shoes completely replaced. We've also filmed a full brake pad and disc replacement video as well, which will take it on to the next stage of refitting the new disc, and then adjusting the little cog here to get the correct amount of pressure on the brand new disc, etc. So if you need any help beyond this point, we'll add a link for you. You can scroll down and check out the full pad and disc replacement video. So you can go towards the end of the video, and then you can pick up the fitment of the new disc if you need any help with that. But that, as we can see, is that done. Thanks for watching, guys. We really do appreciate it. If it's been helpful for you, we always ask, and just that little favour in return, hit that like button before you leave, and if you could hit subscribe, it really does help us out. So thanks again, guys. We appreciate it. We'll see you again.